The alarm on my wrist device screamed the moment I stepped off the shuttle, and I did not even know why. Guards in black armor surrounded me before I could ask a single question. I raised my hands, heart pounding, thinking I had been caught in some smuggling raid I knew nothing about. Then a voice, calm and cold, spoke through a translator box strapped to the lead guard's chest. "You are the one who signed the contract. Come with us now." I had signed a lot of things in the past month. I was broke, stuck on a rusting station called Varen Dock, doing scrap repair work for barely enough credits to eat. 3 weeks ago, a thin alien with silver skin had offered me a marriage contract from some noble house I had never heard of. Free citizenship papers, a housing unit, and enough credits to clear every debt I had. I did not ask questions. I just signed. I never imagined it would lead to this. The guards marched me through corridors lined with banners I did not recognize, past statues taller than buildings, past crowds of aliens who dropped to their knees the moment they saw the guards' uniforms. I kept asking where we were going. Nobody answered. My chest tightened with every step, because something about this felt far bigger than a simple wedding between strangers. We entered a hall with a ceiling so high I could not see the top. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, all species I had never seen before, all dressed in fine robes stitched with moving light. A row of armed ships hovered outside the windows, visible even from where I stood, forming a wall of steel around the entire building. I turned to the guard beside me and asked why an ordinary wedding needed a fleet for protection. He looked at me like I had asked something foolish. "This is not an ordinary wedding," he said. "This is the joining of the sovereign." Before I could ask what that meant, the doors at the far end of the hall opened, and a woman walked in wearing a crown made of pale blue light. The entire room rose to their feet and bowed so low their foreheads nearly touched the floor. I did not bow, because I did not understand yet what was happening. I just stood there, frozen, staring at her. She was beautiful, in a way that felt unreal, with sharp eyes that studied the crowd like she owned every single person in it. Because she did. A man beside me whispered the truth before I even had to ask. "That is Empress Alira. She rules every system in the Concord, every planet, every fleet. She is the most powerful being alive, and you are about to marry her." My knees nearly gave out. I had thought I was marrying some minor official's daughter for a quiet life and a fresh start. Instead, I was standing in front of the ruler of the entire galaxy, about to become her husband in front of a crowd that could end my life with a single word from her lips. She walked toward me, slow and steady, while the room stayed utterly silent. When she reached me, she studied my face the way someone studies a puzzle they are trying to solve. "You did not know who I was when you signed," she said. Her voice was quiet, meant only for me, though I was sure guards nearby could still hear every word. "No," I said, because lying to her felt like the worst possible idea. I thought I was marrying into a small trading house. I needed the credits. I needed a way out of the debt collectors on Varen Dock. "That is the truth." She studied me a moment longer, then something shifted in her expression, something almost like relief. "Good," she said. "That is exactly why I chose you." I did not understand her meaning then. The ceremony continued around us in a blur of chanting and light, and somewhere in the middle of it, I became her husband, bound to the most powerful woman in known space, without ever intending it. The trouble started before the sun even set on that first day. A tall alien noble stormed into the private chamber where guards had taken me to rest, his face twisted with rage. He wore armor marked with symbols I did not recognize, and 2 guards flanked him, though they did not stop him from entering. "You dare stand where a true consort should stand," he snarled. I was promised her hand 3 cycles ago. A human, a creature from a backwater world took what should have been mine. I stood up slowly, keeping my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. "I did not take anything," I said. "I did not even know who she was until an hour ago." He stepped closer, and for a moment, I thought the guards would let him do whatever he wanted to me. Then Alira herself entered the room, and the temperature in the air seemed to drop the moment she spoke. "Lord Kavos," she said, "if you threaten my husband again, you will lose more than your title." He bowed stiffly and left, though the look he gave me on his way out told me this was far from finished. Alira turned to me once he was gone, and for the first time, She looked less like an empress, and more like a tired woman carrying an enormous weight. "There are many who wanted to marry me for power," she said. "Every noble house in the Concord has tried for years, sending their sons and daughters, hoping to bind themselves to the throne. I chose you because you wanted nothing from me. You did not know my name, you did not know my title. You only wanted a fair chance at a better life." I asked her if that made me a target now. "Yes," she said honestly, "it does. But it also makes you the only person in this entire empire I can trust." Over the following days, I learned quickly that surviving in her world required more than good intentions. There were dinners where every dish could be poisoned, meetings where every polite smile hid a hidden blade, and constant testing from nobles who wanted to see if the human consort would break under pressure. I did not break, mostly because I refused to play their games the way they expected. When a noblewoman tried to trap me into insulting a rival house during a formal dinner, I simply told the truth instead of dancing around it, saying I did not know enough about their politics to take sides, and that honesty was worth more to me than clever manipulation. The room went quiet, then oddly respectful, as if nobody had ever heard someone at that table say something so plain. Alira later told me that plain honesty was rare in her court, and that it unsettled people who had spent their whole lives learning to lie smoothly. Lord Kavos did not give up so easily. 2 weeks after the wedding, an attempt was made to remove me entirely, and not by argument this time. I was walking through a garden corridor when the lights flickered and the door behind me sealed shut. A group of masked figures appeared from the shadows, their intent clear from the tools in their hands. I had no weapon, no guards nearby, only my own instincts, and whatever training I had picked up doing hard labor jobs back on Varan Dock. I grabbed a metal support rod from a broken drone charging station and held it in front of me, my heart slamming against my ribs. "I am not going down without trying," I said, more to steady my own nerves than to threaten them. Before they could close in, alarms blared through the corridor, and Alira's personal guard broke through the sealed door. She arrived moments later, and the look on her face was something I had not seen from her before. It was not calm royal composure. It was fear, real fear for me. She held my face in her hands and asked if I was hurt. I told her I was fine, just shaken. That night, the culprits were found. Lord Kavos had funded the entire operation, hoping my death would look like a random accident rather than a political killing. Instead, Alira used it as proof in front of the full council that his ambition had crossed into treason. He was stripped of his title and removed from the Concord's ruling circle entirely. Word of the attack spread across the empire quickly, and something strange happened. Instead of seeing me as a weak human who needed protection, many species across the galaxy began to see me as someone who stood his ground even when facing danger without power of his own. Reports called it human resolve, a trait many of the older species had forgotten how to value after generations of comfort and ceremony. Alira told me later that the council had never seen a consort survive an assassination attempt through simple grit and a piece of scrap metal. She said it reminded her of old stories about early explorers from my own world, the ones who pushed forward into the unknown with nothing but determination. Months passed, and the palace slowly became less of a golden cage and more like a real home. I learned to read the political games without becoming a piece in them. I learned when to speak plainly, and when to stay quiet and observe. Alira, in turn, learned to trust someone completely for the first time in her long reign, someone who never once asked her for power or favors. One evening, standing beside her on a balcony overlooking a city of floating towers, I told her the truth about that day I first signed the contract. I told her I had been desperate, scared, and completely unaware of who she was. I told her I never expected any of this, not the crown, not the danger, not the strange sense of belonging I now felt standing beside her. She smiled, something rare and genuine, and told me that not knowing was exactly what had saved me. "If you had known who I was," she said, "you would have come to me as a courtier, playing every game the others play. Instead, you came to me as yourself, and that is worth more than any throne in this galaxy." I looked out over the city lights, thinking about how far I had come from a broke repair worker signing contracts out of desperation, and I realized something simple and true. I never set out to marry the most powerful woman in the galaxy. I only wanted a fair chance at a better life. Somehow, without meaning to, I had earned something far greater than credits or citizenship papers. I had earned trust, respect, and a place beside her that no noble house could ever buy or steal. And for a species that the rest of the galaxy once dismissed as small and primitive, that was a beginning nobody saw coming.